The All Souls Witchy Women podcast, episode 15, Survival Strategies from the All Souls Trilogy. Welcome to All Souls Witchy Women, a fan and definitely not official podcast where we talk all things All Souls. We're three women who met over Outlander and then jumped into the All Souls world like the time-traveling witches we wish we were. When we recorded our last episode, we certainly didn't think that our next one would be recorded in the midst of a pandemic. And yet, here we are. In a shockingly small period of time, we've been thrown into a world that is barely recognizable to us. People are working on the front lines, people aren't working at all, or they're trying to work from home, which brings its own set of challenges, which I'm sure we will get into at some point. And despite all this chaos, we have this notion that we can keep all the balls in the air. And 1 month into the lockdowns, stay-at-home orders, and self-isolation, the veneer of our calm is starting to crack. Can I get an amen?
Yes,
amen.
Just a titch.
Ugh. In light of all the life changes we're experiencing right now, we thought we would take a look at the survival strategies of our favorite characters in Deb Harkness's All Souls Trilogy, plus Times Comfort. With any luck, a few of these will help us cope just a little bit better during COVID-19 and the new normal that is inevitable. And here to talk about all of those things is, who are these people? Oh, God.
I ask myself that question every day.
Right.
And here to talk about all of those things and so many more, I'm sure, are Ashley.
Hey there.
And Janet.
Hi.
We recently published a blog post titled 6 Crisis Management Strategies from the All Souls Trilogy, and if you haven't read that yet, you can find it at allsoulswitchywomen.com. This piece focused on leadership qualities and strategies, but we wanted to steer this podcast in a different direction. This isn't about keeping your company or your family afloat. This is about keeping you afloat. Flight attendants always remind us to secure our own oxygen mask first, and this is definitely a life motto for us, and we want to take an opportunity here to honor that. For this podcast, we've got 8 tools for sanity that the creatures of all souls help remind us can work, whether it's solving a centuries-old mystery, battling good and evil, or just making it through a day in the time of Corona. So, whew, that is a lot to tackle, but we're going to do it.
Yep.
I think it's, for me, I gotta tell you, what I've been looking forward to is just even talking about this feels like a strategy for survival to me. Just to have this time with you all to even talk about the ways in which we might be able to stay sane is providing sanity.
Yeah, and it's even as we were doing sort of the prep for this and thinking about it, I mean, it's a good reminder to take care of yourself and how to do that, because we all can get lost in the spiral of bad news and et cetera, et cetera. So we hope people take something away from this.
Absolutely. We wanted to start with family because we really think that family is first, and some of us are trapped. I mean, living in a house with family members. Some of us have family members that are far away that we're worried about. I mean, family really figures prominently in this crisis in one way or another. So we thought that's where we would start, trapped with our families. Anyway,
I've been asking people this question all week. Are you viewing home as a sanctuary or as a prison? And does it fluctuate day by day?
Ooh, good question.
Yes.
And?
Yes.
I've heard a mixed bag, and I've heard a changing answer depending on the day or the volume of what you've tackled during the day. Or, I've just even seen a lessening in people's resistance to call it a prison. Is it okay? It's okay for me to admit I feel like I'm trapped. And I'm, because there's so many reminders to find all the simple joys right now and to lean into family and find the simple joys and all that. And we're going to, of course, talk about that. But I think it almost brings up people feeling like, is it okay if I don't feel that yet? Or if I have a day where I'm not feeling that, is that acceptable during this time? I think I for sure fluctuate. I generally, if I feel like home is a prison, I benefit from living further south than you all do to have had warmer climates to deal with this thus far. So I've spent a lot of time escaping, quote unquote, the prison mentality by just getting away from the physical dwelling and going out into nature. And that has seemed to have solved it some, but
Well,
I mean to hijack us all right off the bat. I'm like, is that the first one? No, sorry. Look at me keeping us on track.
Yeah. Well, the other thing is you guys each have kids at home. right? And I do think that makes a difference too, because, we're acutely aware of how we're navigating sort of the messaging around this, right? I mean, you want your child, Caitlin's a teenager, Travis is just in first grade, right? So it's very different. And I watch it with my daughter and her third grader, and it's hard because it's a very challenging thing. And so I would think one of the challenges is sort of saying it's a prison. You don't want to say that like in front of your kid, because that can be interpreted the wrong way. And yet at the same time, you want to sort of open the door for that possible conversation for the child to be able to say, yeah, I feel that way too. So it's like this dance all the time of trying to figure out the right way to communicate the emotions without sort of going too far over the edge. I mean, I'm just here with my husband. Fortunately, we each have our own bedroom that we've commandeered for an office, and that sort of makes it easier. But, I deal with my kids, but I deal with them from afar. Mm-hmm. So I think that's challenging. But at the same time, I look at people who are by themselves, isolated, working remotely, right? Like I look at two of my sons, and I think that creates its own challenge. And so this brings us back to sort of the family first and how family can rally around and what we see in our people.
I thought about the family relationships in Discovery Witches. I thought about Matthew and Marcus, and I keep hearing Matthew going, Christ, Marcus!
I know.
And I've had some Christ Marcus moments with my child, and this is going to be really interesting because the intern is editing this podcast, so she's going to hear all this, but it won't any of it come as a surprise to her. But I've truly had some Christ Marcus moments with her in the last few weeks. But like Marcus and Matthew, when the chips are down, we rally around each other, right? You just have these moments where you're in a space, whether it be a car after leaving the police station or this house that has become your refuge or prison. Things boil over, and they're gonna boil over. And I think, one of the things that we can do as family is just let those emotions kind of come out when they do, and then be prepared to deal with the fallout.
Right.
The banana muffin incident, which I lost my shit over, and then I had to go and apologize later. And right. She graciously accepted my apology, and she let me kiss her on the forehead. So,
Well, that's good, right? But you see that with the Bishops and the de Clermonts, etc. They don't always agree, but at a certain point in there, they say, all right, but we're going to rally together around this. I think Isabeau says it nicely when she says, after she realizes she can't convince Matthew to get rid of Diana, he really does love her and they're really going to mate, etc. And she says, your enemies are now my enemies. We will fight as a family. And,
right.
That's basically what we're all doing on some levels around this pandemic, what's happening economically, and we won't discuss politics. But if we did, that might be relevant.
I'd really like to create a new meter that comes out of this. Nikki, I'm sorry. I'm just having trouble. What is my Christ Marcus count of today, of this whole... So coming soon to a social channel near you. Tell us your Christ Marcus count. But, I think what I like about what the two of you have reminded me, even as we're recording in the middle of this, is that the Christ Marcus moments are okay. And, by you even having them with your kid, you're showing her that it's a release of emotion is totally healthy, too. That you don't have to bottle it in. That it is something that is healthy, because internalizing it can lead to further problems down the road or even in the immediate. And I also like that even, sitting and having the conversation about how it is okay to do that. I think part of my struggle on a daily basis outside of these times, and now even more so during these times, is that I feel like the professional job exhausts me so much, and the daily struggle/juggle, that when I get home, I feel like, my family gets the scraps that are left over. Right? Everyone else has picked at the carcass all day long, and whatever's left is what the people who mean the most to you get. And this time has allowed a really great Control-Alt hard reset to be like, we're all in it. We get the same chance at each other each day, right? And I don't want to reserve just what's left over for you. And so now I'm having to prioritize you as part of that entire day, as opposed to you getting... Now, he's getting some fragmented pieces for sure, but we're kind of sharing in it together, and he's feeling his own fragment. And normally I don't see that during his school day, and he doesn't see it during my work day. So there's something about reminding yourselves that family does come first, and this time is forcing that in a way that I think was desperately needed for me in my own world, but I'm sure for many. And I just, I don't know. And the idea that your individual battles are the family battles, if there was ever was a time to underscore that, it's certainly now. So I overall hope that everyone comes out of this with all the learnings that we're taking from it and the things that we are doing to try and care for ourselves during these times. It is fucking chaotic. There we are.
We've hit our E, right? I'm pretty sure.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure Nikki said shit earlier, but whatever.
Yeah, it's true. But it's just, I don't know, the family first messaging, even when it's hard, and then like to show, to your point, like it's okay to have the cracks show, and it's healthy to show the cracks and let me show you what they look like, but also like let me not use all my conflict and crisis resolution skills during the day, during my work job. Like I got a few left over for all of us here too.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so seeing how sort of the de Clermonts and the bishops have the arguments, have the disagreements, have the things, and yet still come back to sort of reunite and unite and fight for the greater good is reassuring. So.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and one of the things that I was thinking about was the women of the Bishop House, and we know who they are, right? Mm-hmm. But I love calling them the women of the Bishop House because it makes the three of them, Sarah, Emily, and Diana, seem like this one entity. And I love that image as we're thinking about this as families, coming together and fighting this thing together. And the women of the Bishop House, they did that. They had their disagreements, heated disagreements, but then they came together. One of the points that we were thinking about was the speakerphone, the family calls.
Mm-hmm.
Can you imagine? These women were they were hungry for one of these Zoom family calls. But
yeah.
They didn't have the need for it, but they were piloting it long before we did it. It reminds me, I was really, really addicted to a show that is, I don't know, about a decade ago, Brothers and Sisters. And part of it really revolved around them doing these Walker family phone calls. Sally Field would call one, and then they would all connect to each other, and you would just hear them get on the phone and argue and try and tackle it. Yeah. So my sister and I still refer to anytime we kind of conference in my parents as like, oh, we're doing a Walker family phone call? Okay. So I always thought of that when I saw this because I'm like, one of them was holding the phone, and then the other one just knows and goes right to it, right? Because she's like, I'm all in. I'm helping to solve this. I want to tell you you're stupid. I want to tell you I love you anyway. I want to be part of it. And so it feels really timely to right now because that's the way we can still do that moment with family we might be used to seeing more in person than we're able to right now, is to have these moments over speakerphone or over video family calls or whatever they might be. But then when, push comes to shove and they all got back under one roof, not only were they the unit of the three, but they were willing to kind of dig in and build a larger community and a safe haven for others to come into, which I really liked too. As you think about this, like, my God, these women were like, is there a problem to be had? We turn our house into the war room. We expand it if needed to include others. Like, whatever anyone needs right now, we're here for you. And I loved how that fits to right now.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. Well said.
Now I feel all warm and fuzzy. Oh, wait, that was the gin and tonic. Never mind.
Oh, I'm so glad we're drinking. Anyway.
Same. I'm assuming that's one of the 8, and if not, bonus.
Yeah, right, exactly. Right. That will fill that in at various points of, and don't forget the alcohol. Right.
Yeah. Right. Just the constant.
One of the next things that the next thing has 2 pieces. And they're so intertwined that it's really hard for me to sort of separate them. But the first is believe in yourself. This has been incredibly hard during this time for me, and I know for other people. But believing in yourself, believing that you can get through these situations is vital to surviving them. And there are a lot of great examples from the books about the characters believing in themselves. And Diana, for sure. Diana pushed a lot of her past aside because she didn't think she could deal with it and have the life that she wanted. And as the books go on, she didn't exactly have the life she wanted. She might have had a better one. And I think about those things as I go through a day and I think about life being changed and knowing that it will never be the same. And then trying to turn that and go, well, and maybe that's okay. It'll be different, but maybe it will be okay. And knowing that you have whatever you need inside you to face whatever that next thing is has been key for me. And I'm not always great at it.
Yeah.
Well, and so I think that's, it's a great reminder of sort of, when you're having a bad day, which we all have, of just, taking a minute to step back and go, all right, wait, no, I can do this. Like, I have more strength than I realized. I mean, Diana realizes that, right? I can do these things where she has to sort of jump in to save Matthew or save other people at other points. I mean, she finds that inner reserve and believes that she can make it happen. And so I think I try, when I'm not having a good part of a day around this, to just sort of say, all right, it's temporary. That's something that also helps me sort of think it through. It's just like, all right, this is where I am right now in this moment, but that doesn't mean that I can't be in a different moment, X number of moments from now. Or if I just do this one thing, I can make this other thing happen. And I think there are lots of characters who give us examples of that. But, Diana is certainly the primo. She really discovers herself after she starts to believe in herself.
So we talked in the prep for this about Isabeau saying to Diana, don't fear your own power. You're stronger than you think. And I've talked about this before, but I have an anxiety disorder. And so the thing that can sometimes hold me back, in a way, I think has become a bit of a superpower during this. And it certainly wasn't during the first week. But then after you sort of internalize everything, there's sort of a calm that comes around it. Because if you live with anxiety, all of your life is, what if this horrible thing happens, or what if this horrible things happen? And you spend your life thinking about all these terrible things that are probably never going to happen, and you know that, but you can't help thinking about them. And then one day you wake up and realize, oh, fuck, all the horrible things have happened. I know how to deal with this, because I have literally been planning this all of my adult life. And I actually yelled at my family about a week ago, I'm the one you want in a pandemic.
God, sew that on a pillow.
Yeah, really. Right. I'm going to start my cross stitch right now.
Thank you.
Because I'm the one who was like, no, I know exactly what to do with the groceries. And when we come in the house from outside, which we go for walks now, but we're not going to stores or anything. But at the time when we were still going to stores, it was like, okay, this is the protocol. This is how we clean off. This is where we put our coats. This is how I'm going to take care of the groceries. Before Dr. Sanjay Gupta even told me what to do with the groceries, I knew what to do with it. And I'm like, this is the most powerful I've ever been in all my life.
Well, but, and that's a beautiful thing, though. Right? Because I love how you described it as sort of your superpower, because a lot of people think of anxiety. I mean, a lot of times anxiety is debilitating and it's all negative.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But it turns out there's an upside to some of this stuff. But part of that is because you have a belief in yourself, because you have spent all this time practicing for the end of the world as we know it. So thank you, Nikki, for doing all the hard work.
Yes. You're very welcome.
Right.
Well, I like that, because it's a far more positive way to look at it than sitting here going, so what did you learn from this? Like, nothing. Anxiety works. Like, look at this. But to Janet's point, just keep it in the positive spin. Otherwise, I'm sure that your whole life people have been like, stop, it's going to be fine. Yes. It's going to be fine, right? And you're like, no, it's not freaking fine. I told you people. And so you're like, what do we learn? What I'm anxious about actually came true. But to Janet's point, that you have enough wherewithal and inner strength to focus it on the positive, that okay, this anxiety prepped me in a place to handle this better than I would have if I hadn't. I wouldn't feel so maybe like the rug's been pulled out underneath me, because I've been thinking that this could be a thing, and I've been putting measures in place to deal with it long before they were recommended measures. So
yeah. Right.
Snaps to you.
Right.
I think what I love about Diana too is just the moments where even before she finds her inner strength, because I know we've had this where we're like, I'm done, I can't, and then all of a sudden you just find a 6th, 7th gear that you didn't know existed to keep you moving. And it made me think about her when she didn't quite yet believe in her power, but everything innate knows to come out. You find your voice when you need it, and you find that power when you need it. So she's trying to move the butter. She doesn't need to move the butter, right? But when there becomes a moment of needing to get out of the hole that Satu's put her in, or needing to defend Matthew against Juliet, or when the power really has the need to come out, or even in the library, just the innate reaction that she has, when she starts the wind going. I just love the idea that sometimes when we think it's not in there, it comes out on its own when it needs to. So it's no matter what, whether it's your brain that's the slowest to catch up. Everything instinctually within you will do the part for you until you catch up.
Right. That's a really good way of putting it, too, because sometimes it's your body or your innate sort of spiritual, psychic self knows what to do. We get in the way intellectually.
Right.
Right. And so it's that what's the ultimate belief in yourself? It's letting go of some of that other stuff and just letting your interior sort of do what it should do. And then later you observe it and go, oh, that was awesome.
Right.
I should let that part do more. Right. And, and that is part of what Diana has to figure out. And I mean, there are others. I mean, Matthew does too, I think, on some levels. He has to realize, he has a similar kind of letting go, but for other reasons. But the other part of this is acknowledging your fear, right?
Yeah.
Which you put that as the second half. I think that's brilliant. Didn't you write that in our little notes here?
I did, I think. Really hard for me to separate them because I really think that honesty is what helps you be confident. And because if I know that we talk about imposter syndrome, right? You think I don't belong here, or I'm not cut out for this, or somebody else should be doing this. Somebody else knows more about this. Why am I here? And a lot of those reactions come from fear. That we don't think we're good enough. And we wind up in places because we are good enough. And we need to acknowledge the fear that sometimes gets associated, that we wrap around those things, call it what it is, and move past it, and then start to believe in yourself.
I think that sort of acknowledgement, I mean, it's scary to acknowledge your fear, right? That creates its own fear, right? But I think this kind of situation is an opportunity to sort of be like, all right, look, I can't hold on to that kind of crap. So I have to let it go. Otherwise, it becomes too anxiety producing all the time. So it's a position of strength, but it is scary to do it, I guess. I also think when you're in a house with the same person, basically all the time, it's a lot harder to sort of not admit your emotions, right? Because look at it. I mean, I'll take me and Peter as an example, right? I mean, we both work. He leaves the house at 8 o'clock in the morning, comes home at 7:30. I do my jobs, which are various, et cetera, et cetera. And, we meet over dinner, and then it's like somebody may or may not fall asleep in a chair watching TV. In other words, you can go periods of time without ever having to sort of access or admit or explain your emotions, because it's just, there's too much going on, right? But when you're here and you're here all the time, and it's almost impossible not to see what's going on in the world, even if you limit your news intake, there's going to be some moment in the day where you go, holy fuck. And it's when you're in the same place with somebody, I think everybody's more raw, and we should take advantage of that, I guess is my point.
Well, I think the first 2 weeks of being home were really the most difficult for all the reasons that you described. You had a routine, and now your routine is literally just waking up and staying in the same place all day.
I'm sorry, did you say staying in the same place or pants? I didn't hear you.
Oh, that could happen
I didn't
too.
say anything about pants.
Yeah.
Right.
Soft pants.
Right.
Are any of us going back to hard pants? I don't know.
I have on a pair of pants with a zipper today. Today's a zipper pants day.
I still don't understand what this zipper is you're talking about.
Snaps for Janet. Well, the no zipper and the refusal to even wrap your brain around what it could be is going to set you up very nicely for Elizabethan England.
Oh, yeah.
True.
In season 2.
Yeah. True.
And we worked in a mention. You may drink.
Yes, right.
Drink.
Here we go.
Sorry, Nikki, continue your...
Well,
Yes.
As another segue, yesterday I tried on my rings just to make sure I hadn't gained so much weight that I couldn't wear them. But
what was the verdict?
They fit.
Oh, well,
maybe better than they did a month ago, so I was very excited about that.
Well, so there you
go. Listen, if they don't, just put them on your pinky. That's a finger. We don't have to get specific about the finger.
Right.
Everybody shift.
Right.
Everybody shift one to the right.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, now I have 17 pinky rings. Who knew? Right.
I was just going to say, the first 2 weeks of this were so difficult because Drew had been traveling. He'd been on the road. He's going to be so excited because I said his name. But he had been traveling. The kid had been at school. I had been at the office. And we knew this thing had a 14-day incubation period, right? And I just feel like for the first 2 weeks, me being the anxiety-ridden one, I was just looking at everybody all the time. Like, did they cough? Wait, are they flushed? Are they warm? And I Honestly, I can't imagine what it was like for the two of them to live with me, because I know they knew what I was doing. You know, trying to inconspicuously touch their cheeks. And as time has gone on, it's been easier because we've lessened our exposure and down to like once a week trips to the grocery store. But those first 2 weeks were really difficult because you just never knew if somebody was going to wake up in the middle of the night. And, you know, we still never know if they're going to wake up in the middle of the night with a fever or coughing or whatever. But that shit's terrifying.
True story.
And, you know, we have since we're past that, we have, you know, Drew and I have talked about that. Like, you know, the night I kept looking at him, turns out, well, he did feel flushed and he thought he had a fever. And I kept looking over at him like, is he okay? But we didn't talk about that at the time because I don't think it would have done either one of us any good. But, you know, we've had a debrief since then and we were both on the same page, it turns out.
Yes. Well, so acknowledging the fear, but knowing that our friends at All Souls have shown us some ways to get out of it. And that's good.
Well, and I will say that until we put our helpful thoughts to paper here, I didn't realize how important the second half of this was. I had my own Diana in the woods moment last week that I made you to, you know, privy to, where I was like, that's it, I'm snapping. And it takes a lot for me to get there, to be honest with you. And I'm not saying it takes a lot for me to get there within myself. It takes a lot to admit it outwardly, which I think is part of this too, which is to not have sort of fear or shame in the admission of fear or your weakness or whatever it might be, where I was like, I figured it out. I've cataloged what I feel between the hours of 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. It's sensory overload, imposter syndrome, mom guilt, and and a fourth that I'm not remembered, like just all of it on rotation and repeat, and just the screen headaches because it just felt like drinking from a fire hose all the time. But like repeating those four, the fourth I'm not even remembering. So I feel like instead of like, why can't I remember it? It's actually making me feel better because in the process of like it's saying those out loud, this week has been just as difficult, but better to handle mentally and emotionally and spiritually and all the things because I let them have their power and I got it, like I just emptied it out, right? I remember long ago someone telling me that emotions and fear and all that can kind of be like a pool skimmer where, you know, there's that thing on the side of a pool that collects all the gunk that keeps the pool from looking beautiful and swimmable and all that. And if it gets if it gets too full, it will spill out into the pool. So you have to remember to clean it every now and again, and then you can enjoy the waters, right? So it was one of those where I kind of forgot that it's okay for the skimmer to get full and for you to empty it and then start over. And so I didn't know how important that was. You know, in retrospect, in hindsight, seeing how you've paired these together is like so important because it's not just one or the other. It has to be both, whether it's an equal measure or just that they coexist together.
Since Peter and I both had the virus, there was a fear associated with that, you know, I think we were both in varying degrees able to sort of talk about because, you know, we had milder versions and so that's awesome. But I was still waiting for like the night that I was going to stop breathing, just based on all the stories I read, right? I mean, you just are like, okay, so it's milder now, but like, is it going to do that 5-hour switch that you read about? You know, so it's, again, it was just the being able to acknowledge with the other person of you're worried about it. Anyhow, all good stuff.
So scary.
I know. Well, but that's part of, it's what we have to remember and we have to admit it. I mean, when you discuss your fear, it's a way of mitigating it on some levels. You know, if you just keep it in your head, it's like one big thing in your head. But if you share it with someone else, then a piece of it's with someone else. You've only got this piece now because part of the piece went over here or over here. It's like dividing up a pie or something.
I always liked to, I'll just say about this being Diana having this moment in the woods. I always really liked because there's something visually haunting about going into the woods, right? I mean, you either enjoy it for nature or there's just something a little bit ominous to it, if it's dark, if it's moody, if it's, you know, foggy or whatever. So the idea that she had this moment under the veil of these thick trees in the woods to not kind of be scared of it and find her power there, I always really loved, because it could be scary, right? And it was, but then she released that fear and found her power in that setting.
Yeah.
As opposed to like in a field where it feels like, well, sure, you know, you can see clearly in a field.
Right. Yeah.
I feel very much like I want to sing Hearts, These Dreams.
Well,
I always want to sing that song when
Ashley,
we talk about that scene.
I mean, if we don't...
Coming soon.
I mean,
Coming soon.
are we going to have a podcast without singing? I don't know.
Does that even happen? Do these dreams go on when I close my eyes? Every second of the night. Continue.
You're not disappointing me.
All right. Go team. Right there. Not only do we have a wine note in every podcast, but we have Ashley singing.
I know.
Yeah.
People have opted into neither, but we give them to you nonetheless.
Yeah. All right. All right. Well, this is a good segue. Be kind to yourself.
I think all of these things really dovetail really well together. They're all just like one big snake ball. No, that's a disgusting visual. That's not what this is. But so I was talking to the intern today, and I'm like, so can you think of any examples of characters being kind to themselves in the books? And she's like, no, that wouldn't make a very good story. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's true.
I love her.
But we're keeping it in the podcast anyway.
But I mean, just a book about people being nice to each other. I mean, where's the fun in that? But I did want to keep it here because it is so important.
Well, and yes. No, but it also leads into something we're going to talk about later. It's
Absolutely.
a form of being kind to yourself. So, anyhow.
Yes, it absolutely does.
But I think we should read some of the things we wrote here because they're kind of entertaining. So we're going to give examples. They're not necessarily from The Discovery of Witches, but they're relevant. Stop looking at those homeschool charts, right?
Those fucking people who've made those charts
right?
need to be rounded up
right.
and put in a camp somewhere.
Right.
But they used bright colors to denote each cell. That's my favorite.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there are so many light items that you have to be compliant on that they've had to repeat colors as they've gone through them. I'm like, now that's just not even cool. You've gone all the way through Roy G. Biv and you're going back around. That's too many things.
Yes. Right. My favorite, that coronal? How do we pronounce it? Coronusional. Thank you. That's how we pronounce it. So that's it right there. Everybody's got their list of, I've got all this time now, so I'm going to lose 25 pounds. I'm going to become super fit. I'm going to learn to knit. I'm going to write that novel. And guess what? I'm not doing any of that shit, but I feel like we should be nicer to ourselves in terms of our expectations. I mean, my main task that I've given myself, and I am doing very well at it, is I am rewatching Glee. So I'm on season 3. There are 22 episodes in each season.
Well done.
I'm feeling quite successful. So that's that.
I think you found your hobby. See, here's the thing. You were already full of a list of really good hobbies. I mean, it's like, I'll take up a musical instrument. Nope, do a few of those. I'll learn to knit. Nope, still do that. I'll teach courses. Wait, still do that. You do all the, I'll reread a book I love. Wait, you do that. So, I mean, you basically just have to reverse and go to what the rest of us have been doing all along, which is just sitting around and watching TV. Welcome. We've missed you here.
Right, there you go.
Yes. I spent the first 2 weeks full of rage because all these people were posting on Facebook, I'm so bored. What are you watching? I need a new show to watch. And I'm like, I want to watch a show. I can't even watch the shows I was watching before this broke out, much less binge watch anything. And finally, I just had to be like, you need to let that go. You're not going to get to binge watch shit during this. So that's not going to be your thing. You can have another thing, but you can't have that.
Yeah.
I think that's a really valid point. How we're kind to ourselves obviously looks different for each person, right? So Janet's like, fantastic. I've got this time and this is how I'm going to commit to it. Really? And yours might look altogether different. It might be like, I'm leaving this house with Drew and we're going on a walk, and no, you may not come, intern. Whatever it looks like to be kind to yourself, or you go on the walk by yourself. I don't know, but it's like, I had that pressure too, because we've watched a couple things here and there, but I couldn't get on one of those damnable Zoom calls without someone being like, have you started it yet? What episode are you on? And I was like, no, I don't have time. I don't know what you're talking about. Right. And then the first 10 minutes would be the damn tigers and the rednecks. And I was like, oh my God, no offense, times, but I was just like, what are we talking about and why? This can't. Can we go back? I really have limited time. Do we have to talk about the Tigers right now? And then I, P.S., watched the Tiger show and can't get those 7 hours of my life back. So there's that. So just, I guess that to me was a reminder that what someone else might find as being kind to their time and what they want to do doesn't have to be the thing that you do.
Yeah.
In the interest of full disclosure, we did also watch the Tigers. We're actually one episode shy of finishing.
I have not watched it.
Okay, well, I'm just going to be clear. When you're done, I still want to talk about it.
And I have no problem with you talking about it just generally, even though I haven't watched it, because I've heard enough about it. I just can't get past the whole big animals in captivity. I don't know. Plus, I feel, again...
It's not great.
Plus, I feel like, given the politics of the world right now, I'm not sure I could go more into that underbelly.
That's fair.
Yeah,
That's totally fair.
But I know I'm in the minority. So, there it is.
I can't wait to talk to either of you about it. I don't even think you have to watch the show to talk about it.
No, I've heard a lot about it.
I will just say this is a thing that I found myself doing this morning, the shoulds and should nots and being kind to yourself. So on a walk, and my wonderful partner says, I really need to get back in the routine of like getting up early and going to bed earlier. And I said to him, I could get very quickly into the I should, right? Because I'm going to be full disclosure. Our kid has gotten himself into a routine where no matter what time he wakes up, he reads in his room, he does his own thing, and he doesn't come out to show proof of life until 8 a.m.
Oh, yeah. Those are the
All right. So whereas the normal life has us up at 5:30 and going to the gym and doing things and blah, 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 I find myself getting up when he comes in every morning and says, good morning, Mom, and is awake because either I've laid there for a bit or whatever. And Byard was like, I feel like we should be getting out of bed earlier. And I was like, I don't have that at all. You know why? This time is limited and we will be back on that crazy juggle very soon. And I'll remember that for this very small pocket of time, I got to sleep in at 8 o'clock, still do the same job, still get the kid to the same school, still do all the same things and sleep in.
Yes.
So I was like, nope, I'm not setting an alarm. I refuse. I would rather my kid be the alarm because he's at an age where he's doing it at a normal hour.
Plus take advantage of the fact, basically what you're doing is you're not commuting. So why not? It's the hour commute. Instead, I'm horizontal in my cozy little bed.
I agree. I would normally be at the office by 7:45.
Yes.
So I'm like,
yeah.
No, I'm great. And he was like, oh, I guess I could get on board that. And I was like, you don't have to. I'm just saying for me, don't try and change my behavior. I'm great. Thanks, Ahid.
You just get up quickly when the alarm goes off.
Yeah. And also, don't make a lot of noise, right? Like, right. Right. Yeah. All right. Well.
So,
we another way? Yeah.
What?
No, I was going to say, another way.
Yes.
Be kind to yourself.
Do it.
Drink. I'll go. Yeah.
No, but we did. I want you to say what we waffled back and forth on.
Well, I mean, so we always have a why note in these podcasts. And so we waffled back and forth. Do we do a why note? Do we not? Is it frivolous? Well, first of all, wine is never frivolous. And I didn't want to give people a message like you should go and take your time picking wine or you should be real fussy about what kind you get. You should just get a lot of wine.
Yes, really. I mean, you should just be able to just get a case and then whatever.
We had 14 bottles delivered to our house yesterday by a local wine shop.
I love you, Nikki. I just love you.
I do too.
Drew ordered them. I don't know what they are. And you know what? I don't care what they are.
Yeah,
because I'm going to drink them.
They're white or red.
That's right.
Right. Yeah,
yep.
Right.
Two kinds.
Right. So get excited.
But, Ashley.
Yeah, in case anyone's still looking for something that looks routine, we'll shove this right here in the middle where we normally do. To remind you, for those that are trying to have like a learned moment, here you go. We can learn a little bit more about wine. So Byard is going to school us on white blends. And I loved when he was talking to me about this as why he chose to do it, which is just the idea that sometimes people go after, I need to have a Chardonnay, or I need to have a Sauvignon Blanc, or I need to have a Pinot Grigio, or whatever it might be. But that sometimes the best wine can be found from a blend of a few of those grapes to create one that's more palatable and soft on your tongue and all the things. And I loved as he was telling me that because I'm like, that's sort of like what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
Where there might be one tool that serves you during this time, or it could be a wonderful combination of all that you find enjoyment out of, much like a really good blend of wine.
See, now my mind went to how it's like, you're just grabbing things out of your pantry to mush something together to make dinner. Because you're not going to the grocery store as often, and you sort of look and go, I bet if I put those 3 beans together with some rice, it would be edible. So,
oh my God. That's fantastic. But also, because you said that, I just want to make clear, I don't think, but we'll listen in here just to be sure. I don't think he's going to suggest that you pour 3 or 4 different kinds of white wine into a single glass.
No.
Like it's the soda machine at the 7-Eleven when you're a teenager and you just mix them all.
Yeah.
Not that.
Yeah.
Okay, just making sure.
No, I just was, because it was more than one grape potentially or whatever. Yeah. No, I mean, it was just, it was my brain doing what it does, which, is inexplicable. So.
Your brain was apparently in my kitchen earlier because that's what we had for dinner.
Yeah, really.
So, yeah.
Good day or good evening to all of my quarantined friends out there enjoying this podcast. Today, we're talking about blends, but specifically white blends. We're going to talk about blends because we're all quarantined and we're trying to have a nice blend of a day, a blend of maybe homeschooling and outings with our children, or maybe the countless Zoom meetings that you've been having, and thus the adults need a happy hour at the end of the day. So we're going to be talking about blends, again, specifically white blends as we're making our way into the spring season. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're probably saying, Bayard, when I think about blends, I think about reds. Well, be prepared to be pleasantly surprised because a lot of great wines out there are white blends. You can get them domestically from the Central Coast region of California, the Willamette Valley of Oregon, as well as the Burgundy, Bordeaux, and Rhone regions of France. The thing to keep in mind next time you walk into your wine shop for a white blend is what kind of base are you looking for? Do you like Sauvignon Blanc? Do you like Chardonnay? Do you like something on the sweeter side like Viognier from the Rhone Valley? The idea is that we're all looking to try something new as we come out of this time of quarantine. So when you walk into your wine shop, definitely know like, hey, I want to try a little bit of Chardonnay Sauvignon Blanc blend. I want to try something with a little bit of Semillon and Viognier and maybe a little bit of Marsanne and Roussanne. Now, a lot of these are grapes that we haven't spoken of previously, but they make phenomenal white blends that as we, again, come out of this quarantine, you're really going to enjoy and you can get at a rockin' price. So enjoy some of those new white blends out there. Be safe and stay healthy.
All right. Thank you, Bayard.
Oh, Bayard. I have been texting my child trying to get her to bring me some not wine, water, and she won't.
Can you text her to bring me wine now that I know there's 14 bottles in your house? That's really good. I might try that. Hold on. Let's see if it works.
Oh, yeah. So here's the thing I love about white wine and blends. Beautiful things, separate beautiful things blended together to form one beautiful thing because it reminds me of stories. And one of the things that I wanted to talk about is storytelling. And I think storytelling pairs well with a lovely glass of wine. It might even, enhance the stories. But not if my granny's telling them. But I've thought a lot about my granny during this whole thing. And one of the things that I think about is her storytelling. And I haven't talked to her a lot, but I know that my dad's visiting with her and she is telling a lot of stories about when she was a kid. She's telling a lot of stories about when my dad was a kid, when polio was still a threat. And, she lived through the Great Depression. And, one of her ways, she lives a fairly isolated life anyway. She's a 92-year-old woman. So, she deals with isolation all the time. One of the ways that she deals with it is telling stories to people when they come and visit her. And I just think what a healthy, wonderful thing that is for her because it helps her relive moments. But all of those stories serve as reminders of all the things that she's lived through and overcome and what we as a society have overcome. And it sort of gives us hope for whatever the future looks like. All of this stuff has happened and we're still here. We're still going to be here after this. It's just, it's going to look different. It's going to feel different. We're going to be wearing masks a long time. And, it wasn't anything for my dad's generation for people to be in iron lungs. That was commonplace then. And that seems unimaginable to us now. We can't even imagine a time like that. I love the thought that she's using these stories to get herself and my family through this time. And I was thinking last night about Time's Convert, which is really Marcus telling his story. Mm-hmm. The whole book is him telling his life story from like teenage years to when he almost died and Matthew turned him into a vampire to the present day. Mm-hmm. And we get a whole book that is his story. And that's a way that he survived the time when Phoebe was off being turned into a vampire. That's the way he got through that. And, you know, when he started to get a little bit dark or a little bit quiet, Matthew and Diana would prompt him. And then he would think of something else to tell a story about. And that's one of the things that I thought about that we could focus on during this time is telling stories, good, bad, ugly, funny, wine-fueled, whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever you need. You do you.
Yeah. I think your point about how it reminds us, even in a subtle way, that there's hope, that people survive things, or it also, depending on the story, can be something very humorous, which is always, you know, lightens up the rest of the feelings you're having. You know, I think it's a really great idea. And giving the Times Convert as an example is your usual smart self. No, it's good. It's good.
I'm over here. I'm sorry. I'm feeling like really emotional on the inside, all the feelings, because you're making me think of my own grandma. First of all, when we come out of this at some point, I'm going to show up in Kentucky when you're least expecting it, when I know you're there, just so I can have the moment with you and your family and your granny that I've heard so much about, that we have heard so much about. My grandma was very similar. She was I think my soulmate, right? Removed by a couple of generations. And I remember, and this is when she was still here, but then we found them again, the letters that my grandfather had written her when he was in the war, that she had kind of saved. And when we were going through her things to, so she had introduced us to him, you know, maybe several years before she passed, but then she stopped living in her home and, you know, things weren't the same for her. And so to rediscover them again and think not only of the time that she had first shared that story with us, but to go back to an even time before that. So the idea that those stories can transcend time, not just because of when they were written and of the time that they're told to when you read them, but the idea that you can rediscover them over and over again and maybe find them when you need them the most. So I really loved you bringing up Times Convert here, because it's a book that we all hungrily read, but we you know, always go back to focusing on the original trilogy as part of sort of the direction the show is headed and where we focus the podcast. But there is so much richness to be found in Times Convert, and that was an especially timely reminder of like passing the time and in a simpler way. Like everybody grabs their phone and scrolls to like pass the time, but really the best stories are to be found by storytellers around us rather than maybe those that we try and connect with from a stranger standpoint. So I love that.
I have to say that among the virtual things that have happened, one of Peter's cousins has organized this, you know, massive Reynolds Zoom thing that's happened every weekend for the past 3 weeks. But one of the things that has come out, and one of the people who's on it is Peter's 87-year-old uncle, who is the last person of that generation who's alive. It was his father's brother. And one of the things that people have been doing has been a lot of sharing of different memories at various points, different stories. And so it goes to sort of what you're talking about. It can be a way of sort of unifying us and reminding us of our shared history, but also that there will be stories out of this too that are positive. So anyway.
Well, I love that you all are both reminding that I shouldn't get completely annoyed immediately every time I see that people are making COVID time capsules.
Oh,
really?
I hadn't heard of that.
Doing that?
Yeah, no, that's a thing where it's like there are plenty of like Pinterest worthy, I'm sure, worksheets, templates, or whatever that you can fill out. Some of it I think is just a mere writing prompt, and some of it is like instructions for what to put in it or something. I'm like, what, like mask, gloves? What are we talking about? And I think I see it and I think, oh, I should do this or whatever. And then I immediately go to getting annoyed, like one more thing to do, one more craft project. Thank you very much. Like with 1,000 pieces and not enough glue, which is what a lot of the day feels like. And then I think, well, that's if you're trying to do it in the prescribed formula that someone set up for you. But by just taking the time to even write down, like, here was the Christ Marcus moment and the gratitude moment of the day, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be like, you know, full prose and like expanded thoughts. It can just be those simple moments like today sucked because, and today was a winner because of this. And to be able to go back and share that time, or like especially, you know, for like Maxine, Janet's granddaughter, for Caitlin, for Travis, who will be much older and trying to think of like, how did I process that time, or what the heck was that
Yeah.
30 years from now, right? But I would love to be able to just sit and just write to him a couple times and be like, we did our best. We hung together. Here are the fun things we did, and let him go back and look at it. And then even for me to see it, right? To tell stories of this time from our perspective, and not when our kids go to look at it and they Google it, or maybe there's a chip implanted in their head at some point 30 years from now, who the heck knows, that just tells them, oh, you're instinctually thinking of this, and it feeds news that to the, we all have this, like, wait, is that the kind I want to be telling? So it's like, let us tell our own stories of how we processed this time and what we did to survive it and how we got through it together, and let them learn from that, as opposed to 30 years from now Googling it.
Yeah, I think it's worth sort of taking it. And I think going back to the shoulds versus the what you should do, right? If what you do is you write down something once, that counts. Right. In other words, if you decide to write something once rather than like, oh, I didn't do it every day, so therefore it's not working, in terms of a journal. I mean, I do have one of those 5-year journals, so that each day is under it for 5 years, so you can look back and see. But literally, I've had days where basically what I just wrote was coronavirus. And then the next day I wrote coronavirus. And because that's about all I had in me.
Well,
but
that will be meaningful.
Exactly. But I also thought, wow, if there are 4 days that just say coronavirus, I'm pretty sure people are going to get a feel for how this was going. Right? Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, it's not unlike, if you think about it, when Diana was secretly journaling in Elizabethan England, but couldn't do it in a way that would indicate anything kind of time travel specific, right? So she had to write specific to that moment, where it would just be like, what you ate for dinner, like what it was, like 4 very simple facts about the time, and yet they were able to read that and infer what the piecing together of that story was that she was trying to tell.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, absolutely. Anyway,
it's your commonplace book, Janet.
Exactly, and it's pretty focused on one thing at the moment, but that's okay.
I can see it. I'm sorry. I just see Janet's is like, Day 87, coronavirus, also tequila. Day 112, coronavirus, still tequila.
Yes. No, that's in there. Or concerns around the dispensary, but all right, we won't go there. Anyway.
Essential services.
Exactly. Damn it. All right, so.
Speaking of.
Yeah.
I think this goes very nicely in with self-care.
It does.
Which is, I'm not going to lie, that's my favorite. That's my favorite bit of this, because, we need to take care of ourselves.
Yes.
And
agree.
there are so many examples in the books that we can pull from, and then, examples in real life. And, we know that in A Discovery Witches, Diana, she uses physical activity to help her work through her panic attacks and anxiety. And she runs to the boathouse to row, which I never can really get my head around that, but that's 2 exercises.
Exactly. Right. I'm with you, Nikki. That's like, wait, I just exercised twice.
Yes. 1 would have been totally sufficient.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I'm with you. That's something Peter would do. Well, I ran and now I'm doing yoga. I'm like, wait a minute.
Oh.
I know, but whatever. But she's very good at that stuff.
Yes. And she doesn't even realize why she's doing it, really. I mean, she thinks she's doing it for one reason, but we find out later that she's actually doing it for other reasons. But, that she knows that that's what she needs to maintain an even keel. And a lot of surviving this time and other stressful times is understanding what we need and what we need to give our bodies, what we need to give our brains to survive these times. And, like so many of these other things, it's going to be different for other people. For me, it's not running to the boathouse and rowing. For me, it's yoga. Yoga's good for me. And walking, woods, neighborhood, whatever.
Well,
that's
and also
sort of my thing.
Yeah, and can be something different every day, etc. The point is to try to remember to take a moment to sort of do something for yourself.
Yeah, and I love this one specifically because this is, I am very Diana like this. That's why I was being quiet. I was like, oh crap, I'm the one in the group that would go for the 2 to 3 forms of exercise in one sitting, Team Peter. But why I lost my mind the other day when my child accidentally fell all 65 pounds of him on my knee because it was just the idea, like, go straight to anxiety of like, no, you can't take from me the thing that is keeping me sane. Like I've heard people to be like, oh no, I like to oh my God, I've been taking so many baths to escape my family, just crawl in a hot bath. And I was like, I have that go out and pound pavement or sweat in some way or just get on a bike or do something that's still safe or take on a plank challenge, like all these random things, because I'm like, it gives me something to strive for that I enjoy, but also as a sense of release. And please, like, there's so many things taken from us right now, please don't let this be the thing. So this form of self-care speaks to me. I know, like, my mom will say to me, like, oh, I feel like I have to go exercise or else I feel guilty. And I know there's so many people that feel that way, and I am like built more like my dad, who is the Diana who rides his bike to the gym, then works out for an hour at the gym, and then rides back, and has been just cycling 20 miles to escape the fact that the gym is closed. So to each his own, right? We all, and I guess the reason I say that is to illustrate the point that we all come out of the same family and yet have a different thing that works for us. So we can't assume that because I have a high need to be outside and aggressively working out, that that's what my kid needs or my husband needs. My husband needs to be in the yard doing non-essential yard things for hours on end with headphones on to be left alone. And I'm like, that's your self-care. That's fantastic. But I love that everybody's looks different.
Yes.
I have a little bit of advice from Sawtoo. This is the advice for when rage takes you over. And I think it's Sawtoo approved, is that sometimes maybe you just need to set some shit on fire. The intern discouraged me from saying this, and she said I shouldn't encourage pyromancy. And I'm like, is that a word? And she's like, I don't know, is it? And I'm like, I don't know, but it is now. Pyromancy.
How do you, what's...
Well,
like a pyromaniac.
Pyromaniac.
Yeah, what's maniac is a noun that isn't a person, just a behavior. Is that maniacism? I don't know, I'm making it up.
I don't know. But she wanted me to discourage pyromancy, but I'm just going to tell you right now, sometimes... So people talk about bonfires, right? People have fire pits in their backyards, and I have a little gas column thing, and people talk about it being very relaxing. But I think we just need to get to the heart of it. Sometimes you need to set shit on fire. And if you want to call it a bonfire and you want to make it sound peaceful, that's fine. That's your thing. But at the heart of it, you're setting shit on fire and it's making you feel better. As long as it's controlled in the little aluminum ring, it's fine.
I think that's... Yes. You told me to do that the other day. Well, Sawtoo did. Apparently, Sawtoo spoke through you to me the other day because you told me to step away and go burn something. But then you were very prescriptive. Wait, hold on. Before you go, let me be very clear what not to burn.
By the way, pyromancy is a word. It means the art of divination by means of fire.
God, I love that kid.
She's right. Well, she wasn't all the way right because that's not exactly what it means, but... Yeah. It is a word.
It is a word, and it has to do with fire, but it also is sort of spell-like, so it's particularly appropriate.
Well, that might be my new favorite word.
Yeah, hello, exactly.
Well, if we can't burn things, I will tell you that when I was 15 and I first blew my knee out playing soccer, and I went to visit my aunt, who is like my Aunt Emma and Sarah hybrid. And she taught me, she was going through a divorce from my uncle at the time. They're blissfully back together for many years. But she was explaining to me how she had really resisted and then embraced the notion of just yelling fuck really loudly. Oh. And to Janet, she's like, well, what do you mean? It's Tuesday. Like, right? Like... But when you're 15, that's not something that my parents did, right? So I was like, you know, and so she was like, it's not to say it just to say it. It's to aggressively yell it, right? Ugh. Like, get it out of your lungs. And, like, do it in a bathroom. Do it here. Do it in the backyard. I don't care. But, like, if you ever tried it, and I remember the summer that she taught me that, and it released so much pent-up, like, stress, fear, anxiety that I had at, like, 15. And I was like, huh. And it was, like, the healthy habit of, you know, 25 plus years ago that I've taken with me, and whatever it looks like. Maybe it's not fuck. Maybe it's whatever word you choose for yourself. But it's just the idea of, like, that being a word that kind of... I think brings to mind the setting on fire aspect of whatever it is that is just providing some sort of like really aggressive release of it out of your system is a form of self-care because you're getting it out.
Absolutely.
Yes. All good. I made the DoubleTree
God,
chocolate chip cookies.
I want those cookies so bad.
Yeah.
We're making them this weekend.
Yeah.
We're going to do our own stuff.
I sent the picture to Rachel, and she's like, oh my God, I'm making them tonight.
Mm-hmm.
They looked amazing.
Yeah, they're dangerously good.
It's the lemon and cinnamon that I didn't know.
I know.
That is a game changer.
Yeah. They also bake them at 300 degrees. That's a
slow
low
bake.
oven.
Yeah, that doesn't even sound right. But...
Yeah, well, it works. So, that's it.
You know what goes great with cookies?
What?
Tea.
Tea? Oh, yes.
And that is a very Diana-approved self-care
True.
technique. Because the very act of making tea, I believe, is an act of self-care. Because tea is very different than coffee for me. I love them both, but coffee is what you need to get going in the morning. It's not necessarily a pleasurable thing. It's just this is what I need to put in my body to make it do the things. Tea, that's different altogether. You have to boil the water, and I drink loose leaf tea, so you have to put the tea in the
It's a ritual.
Yes, I love the ritual of it, and the very nature of making a cup of tea makes you slow down.
I agree. Totally agree.
I love that as a moment of self-care. You have this, 5 or 10 minutes where it's just you doing this thing and not rushing it, because that's not going to do you any good. And I love it.
Yeah, I think to your point, it just says something to your brain and your body that's different. To your point, coffee is a stimulant to power you through the day, whereas it feel like tea is its own way of telling you to just like sit down. It's all right. Calm down. Just take a time. Just take a moment. Lean into this moment. Calm down. And, most of them, and hell, all the tea bags, a lot of them, I get that it's a few brands here or there, but they come with the beautiful spiritual sayings on them, almost like they're encouraging that moment. So I don't see coffee bags coming with that. They're just like, get it in your system.
Yep. They come with a syringe.
They come with a syringe. Well, I was thinking when you were talking about a cup of tea, and I'm like, I know that Mart's maybe her intentions were kind of not honest, but what she was trying to do was like, I see a problem and I fix it with tea, and I liked that she came up with a blend that had a medicinal purpose to it. And so to me, I was thinking about this, and I'm like, all right, it's not okay what you did, but that's not to say that tea can't have that effect when done and like for the intention that you need it to. As long as you know it. I liked the idea that she was like, hold up, let me mix these few herbs together and brew yourself this, and it will help. And if we take away what she was doing with it, in general, you can always find some sort of need to be served with tea. Digestive, detox, calming, sleep, whatever it might be. It just fills the need.
Yes.
One of our other techniques that we talked about in our prep for this was asking for what you need, which is sometimes incredibly difficult, because we hope that these people that we are living with, these people who we're sharing every moment of our lives with, can just sort of look at us and go, oh, I think she's hungry. I think she needs a plate of bacon and toast. And that's not happening, really. And so we do think it's important that you're able to ask for what you need in this time, because we can't always depend on other people to know exactly what it is we need. For instance, moments ago, I asked my family for water. They brought it to me. I'm practicing what I preach.
There you go. The beauty of texting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's so wonderful and clean. I texted for more wine, and it came.
It did.
It just appeared.
Magic.
I think that's important. I think that's a really hard one. I feel like I saw Diana doing that a lot, where it's like, ooh, I don't want to be needy. I don't want to say the things that I need. I don't want to admit that I need help. I don't want to admit that, and so I think there's an aspect of like, you should know what I need, plus I'm scared to ask for help. And this is not really a time probably for either of those, right? So I like that this was included in here. I feel like we pointed this out along with the self-care. I was going to say as we exited all the self-care. And for this one, shameless plug that we did episodic recaps for each of the episodes that appeared on the TV show for season 1 and pointed out so many moments of the self-care and the resistance to asking for help or admitting that you need help or, someone not. So the fact that we're circling back around to this in such a different context is, I don't know, it's interesting but also fulfilling. And I just remember quite a few times I was pointing out that it was like, sometimes you're not sure what you need until it finally comes out, right? And you have the power to give it. I know we were talking about Matthew showing up at Hamish's house, which, like, I'm remembering from the show version of it. It was just like, wow, we live inside a cake. What's happening here? What's going on? But, it's like, God, I didn't know that this is what I needed until I showed up and I said, oh my God, I need to hunt. I need to do something. I'm going out of my brain. And it's like one hunting session, a chess game, and an honest conversation with a friend, and you leave a new man. It just takes admitting it.
I also think for me, this isn't one of my skills. I'm not very good at asking for what I need. And I think remembering that people actually want to give you what you need, makes it a little bit easier to sort of say, it's not a position of weakness it's actually a position of strength to say, hey, I'm evolved enough to say, this is what I need right now. Or this is what I need not to have happen. Can either way, that can be the case. And typically people are responsive to it because the people you're sharing that with are people who love you.
And I think the other thing, it's sort of related to what you said, Jen, saying, I don't know what I need. I know I need something, but I can't quite put my finger on it.
Yes, that's good too. Yes.
And I will say that early on, it might have been during the first week, that we were, in the house when I still felt very anxious. I know one night I felt myself shaken all night. My heart was racing. I was shaken, and the kid went to bed, and I didn't know what to do. I knew I needed something. I didn't know what it was, and I walked across the room, and Drew was sitting in his chair, and I just laid my head in his lap and cried. And because I just didn't know what else to do. And I was hoping he would know what to do with that. And he did.
Yeah. Right.
He rubbed my back and he comforted me and he said, it's going to be okay. And every anxious bit of me wanted to scream, you don't know that. But I sort of choked that back and thought, you know what? Just believe this just for a little bit. Even if you don't really think it's going to be okay. Just believe it for a little while to get through this.
Right.
And that was actually a turning point for me in sort of pushing through the anxiety and being the anxiety warrior. But it's good to share a life with somebody who sees you struggling and sees that you can't articulate the thing that you need, but can sort of work their way into it, I guess.
Right.
I think I was going to say, I'm just sitting here wishing I could hug you. I mean, I generally wish that anyway, but now that it's socially unacceptable to do so because I'm not in your immediate family until we can. I was going to say it leads in very nicely to what he's trying to say without saying it, which is the last point that we had, which is about how just the simple fact of acknowledging that you're not alone is its own form of survival.
Right.
Because I think we make it worse for ourselves when we're like, I'm the only one experiencing, or like nobody gets it, I don't this, oh my God, I have to battle all of this alone, which gets at a lot of, I think, what we've talked about already. But him stroking your back and saying it's going to be okay, like, yeah, as it relates to the larger world and the things going on, it may or may not be okay. But what he's saying, or at least attempting to say to you with my one course in psychology in college that I got to be in, is like, but I'm here. I'm in the oubliette with you, trying to figure out the way to get out. And you're not alone in trying to do that. And even if it's, I'm going to talk or I'm not going to talk, I'm just going to sit here with you to remind you that you're not alone is enough. Right. Like sometimes it's not even the words. It's just like, oh good, I'm not physically alone having these shaking fears. Someone is sitting with me.
Right.
And I say that with utmost sensitivity for people who don't have someone immediately living in their home with them during this time. Because just the being able to physically touch the people in my house. Now, of course, I know we're all having moments of like, please get the hell away from me right now. But at the same time, like not taking for granted, like I'm allowed to physically touch these people, right? I'm not supposed to touch anyone else or get anyone else when I'm like the world's biggest hugger, high fiver, handshaker, and all the things. So to have a lack of or a loss of physical touch right now because you might be someone who lives alone or live in like a senior center or something where it's like you live in a community of people, but you still are in an individual unit within that larger community and not allowed to touch people. So I say that with sensitivity, but I think that there is still a way for you to feel like you're not alone, whether someone can physically sit with you or not. I just keep seeing all these rallying cries of community that are making me be like forever reminded that we're not alone, because I don't like, again, nicer weather, but I've never seen so many people out in nature, in their family units, doing things with the waves and the highs and, just like engaging with each other, almost just like a passing look and a smile and a wave that says like, I know what you're out here for, and I'm out here for it too, and we're in it together. Yep. And I love that, just even taking a second to recognize that as its own form of survival strategy.
Yeah, I agree. And I was actually talking to Rachel on the phone tonight, and she was just like, she goes, I just want you to know that when I see you, we're going to have a serious hug. And she said, and I'm probably going to cry. And I was like, oh yeah, I'm totally going to cry, because it's going to be that whole release of, months of not having seen each other other than virtually. And it's going to feel like such a release.
Absolutely.
So, but that is one of the great messages of the All Souls Trilogy, is we are not alone. We are in all of this together. We share similar concerns and needs.
And it's its own community.
Yep.
Yes.
It's its own community.
Right.
Which I think we've talked about many a times, of being involved in other book or show fandoms or just anything else that you can have a micro community out of that can sometimes either inspire or drain you. And this is one that has never drained us. It's such a wonderful world of creatures, both fictional and real, that we've found ourselves among. And it's like so refreshing. I've really enjoyed seeing just a lot of the social channels of some of the cast and crew, and obviously Deb Harkness, our other like podcasting comrades, and everyone, just seeing how people are handling this time. And it is the moment to go like, okay, well, we're not just, the three of us aren't just in it alone. Look, everyone in this community is like doing their own thing to try and keep kind of spirits alive and provide an outlet and a release and a shoulder. And I love that kind of, feeling within this All Souls world of, we are all souls and we're not alone.
Yep.
That's it.
That's it.
That's it. I mean, we are all souls. It's what Deb says. It's what this community has taken as sort of a rallying cry, not just in this time, but in other times. And I think if we could end on anything, that's what it should be. We are all souls, period. Thanks for spending some of your valuable time with us as we discussed all things All Souls. We hope you enjoyed it as much as we did, and then if you feel inspired, I'll say it later.
I think you should say it now. Say it, you know what? I think you should say it now, or I'm happy to jump in for you, because you're just illuminating the point. You're not alone in trying to deliver it.
Yeah.
Do it.
Well, I hope you did feel inspired. I know we ran really long, and I think it was well worth it, and hopefully you'll stay with us. But if you feel even more inspired after this, we hope you'll leave a review on Apple Podcast. If you'd like to join in the conversation, find us on Twitter and Instagram at AllSoulsWW, on Facebook at All Souls Witchy Women Podcast and Blog, and online at allsoulswitchywomen.com. See you soon.
Love you, ladies.
Love you guys.